Alright, hello again guys. I'm sorry I've been busy and yeah, I haven't gotten a tutorial up in a while. So, I'm back, hopefully, for a while. This is going to be, I've gotten a few requests for it, just to have the fundamentals of 3ds Max. They say tutorials are good, but I need to know from the basics. So, this series is going to be, it's going to be every second tutorial. It's going to be a series of just basic 3ds Max things. We'll start from the ground up. I never had any formal training with 3ds Max, so this is just my basic knowledge of it, but I do have a very high knowledge of it, working with 7 years. Geez, 7 years now. And yeah, so we'll go over this first one. We'll go over the GUI, 3ds Max, some of the panes over here, and most importantly, all these menus, because these menus you won't go over. These are real flow in Krakatoa. Excuse me. And hopefully we will just, during the course of this, we will build an entire scene, probably thinking there will be no third-party programs, and it'll be third-party scripts but no third-party programs. I'm kind of thinking there is this nice NVIDIA kind of animation showing off the physics and the Mass Effects and something like that, and it would go over a lot of the entire workflow that 3ds Max uses. So I'm probably thinking something like that at the very end. And yeah, let's get to it. So first, let's go look at the GUI. Right here, menu bar, not too hard to see. You got your file menu, which is hidden under this 3ds Max symbol. You got your edit menu, tools, groups, views, create, and I'll go over all these. Next down is this, your main toolbar. That's what it is. This can be customized by right-clicking on it, hitting customize. And there you go, you see your toolbars, and there is a lot of toolbars. And yeah, there's your keyboard shortcuts, your toolbars. You can have your quads, which is these 4 things right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, those are your quads. Your menus, of course, and your colors. That's just the look of it. But that we'll go into a bit later. That's customizing the UI and stuff. So first, your file menu. This is pretty basic. These ones can't really think. The only difference between save and save as, you save as a different type. New and reset. This is a bit different. Yeah, exactly right there. It says it right there. New all, it just refreshes with a new scene, but it keeps the session setting. So let's say if we go here, we transform the camera to about here, and when we hit new, see, it keeps it like this. However, if we hit reset, it'll press yes. It resets everything to basics. So if we hit new, you can see that camera settings will change, or will stay the same. Whatever thing you've saved in that session will stay the same. See, new? All the session stuff stays the same. Reset, everything goes back to normal. It goes back to the beginning. Depends on what you want to use. I use reset a lot. Open, save as, easy. Import and export. This is a bit different. Import is non-named file, so this is have an OBJ file, an FBX file, or something like that. You want to import it into here. Merge is a beautiful tool. I think it was introduced in 2010. And what it does is it merges 2 scenes. So let's say we'll hit merge, and say you built 2 scenes, but now you want to put them together. You have this scene which has a box in it. Let's just create a quick box in here. And you have another scene that creates I don't know, something else. You hit merge, and let's pull in a scene that I've created. Go under my 3ds Max folder. Let's pull in, I want to say something I haven't used. Okay, apartment. This is a huge scene that I've been working on lately. And now we'll pull in bathroom. We'll pull in, see, I really have problems naming stuff. As you see, line, box. I use a lot of boxes. Okay, we'll pull in box 141. And now, as you can see, it just merged it right with it. And that is the bed, I think. Well, the bed light frame. It always merges it in the exact same place it was in the previous scene in comparison to the origin. So that's what the merge tool does. We'll delete this box out, and we'll reset it because basics did that. Oh, I didn't want to save. Reset. No, we don't want to save it. Yes, I want to reset. Import, export, and then replace, as it says, replaces objects with an external file. I've never used replace. I can never see a point of it. I just delete the file and save the other one over top. It's the same name. Exporting, this is when you export it to like a FBX document, an AI. I mean, you got lots of choices. So yeah, we got those. Send to, you can send it to Mudbox, Motion Builder, Software Mods. These are all Autodesk programs that are post-processing or illustration programs or stuff like that. Reference, I've never actually used it. Manage, this is managing your projects and stuff. So this would set a current project folder. So if you want to have that entire huge project folder, I'll pull it up. I did it once and I hated it. Documents, 3ds Max. Project folder, when you create a project folder, it will create all these things. New folder, yeah. What it'll do is it'll create this project files folder, and then it'll have your name of your thing, your scenes, and everything like that. And really, I don't see the point of having all of them because I don't create enough big name things. But once you start creating big names things, like huge animations, you have a workflow you want to follow, you probably want to know it's in there. And manage the assets of the current 3ds Max scene. I don't really worry too much about that, but it is useful. And of course, the info is just the info about the Max scene. So you got your summary info, which is amount of meshes. I mean, if I open up one of my other ones, let's open up my penthouse apartment. Well, actually, I think I'm going to use this one mostly for it. Look at that! Look at all that with models and junk. Man, that's a lot of stuff. And now, see if we go to properties, we can go summary info. So in my scene, there's 317 objects, 16 shapes, and exactly here's all the names of them and everything. Memory usage and stuff like that. So it's very, very basic stuff like that. You also have for new, open, save, undo, redo, and the project to change a project folder. I don't worry too much about that. Now edit menu. Of course, very simple. This is just any editing things. Hold and fetch. I do not know what these things do. Actually, I've never used them. As you can see, I don't go through these menus actually. Delete, clone. Clone you can hold by pressing shift and dragging. That's how I use the clone tools. You can also press Control V and it'll clone it exactly right on top of it. Be careful with the Control V one, it automatically clones it as an instance, not as anything else. That's those things. Move, rotate, and scale. It's W, E, and R. I don't know why they don't have R right there, but I mean, hit W, hit E, hit R. Basic stuff like that. Transform type in and transform toolbox. Never actually use them. Let's see the transform toolbox. Oh, look at that. Nice little toolbox for transformations. But I mean, most of these things you can just get with the gizmos. I think these were probably in before the gizmos were in, back in like 2004, 2005, stuff like that. Alright, so you got select all, select none, select invert. Select invert's kind of nice, is if you have all these random things you don't want to select, you can just select the invert. Select similar, I don't know what that means. I'm assuming by the name, but I have no idea how that works, so I never use it. Select instances, that makes sense if you have instances of the same object. So let's say we have this ottoman here, zoom in on this, and I drag and clone out an instance, make sure it's few instances, well, we'll go with 3 of them, and then we go select tool, select, or edit select instances. You see all those instances are selected. Yeah, so we'll delete that out. Oh shit, do not want to leave out all my ottomans, I only want 3 of those 3. Select by, there's some cool ones, name, layer, and color. So if we can select by name, and it'll bring up this select from scene, which you can also access from right here in this toolbar. Select scene. You can select anything. Select by color is really nice. I've shown it off a lot in my 3ds Max tutorials on how to set the color properties for the your materials by just pressing this button. See, everything's black right now. And then you can select the nice little areas that you're going to use for fractures and stuff like that. I've used that a lot in my previous tutorials. My mirror tutorial actually is one of the biggest ones I've used in. And select by layer. I don't use layers too well. As you can see, I have I have 5 pathetic layers in this huge scene of 1 million polygons. And yeah, so I don't use layers as much. You should. It's a good habit. I don't know why I haven't done it. Object properties brings up the object properties windows, and you can do that easily by clicking and hitting object properties. A lot of these things can be accessed in multiple ways. As I can say, zoom in on here. You have your move, rotate, scale tools, your select similar, your clone, and object properties. That's almost every one of these from this way to this one. Like that's most of those. Tools, never really used them, but there are a lot of good tools in here. I think that should be its own tutorial, because we're just going over the UI right now. Group, you can group objects, you can ungroup them, you can open and close. Again, that'll be its own tutorial. Views, this is actually pretty important. Alright, so for the GUI and the camera controls, this is pretty important. And as you can see, I'm easily rotating around the scene and stuff like this. This is actually camera controls in the viewport. I should go over them right now. So first, zooming in and out, it's just your mouse button up and down, up and down. If you want fine zooming, you'd have to go click this button down here, the zoom tool, and then you zoom in and zoom out and zoom in. Okay, and now, next is the, and if you want to get back to your regular tool, so if your zoom tool and you can't think, just right click, and there you go. You only have to right click once. I do right click twice. So here's my zoom tool, right click, here's my normal tool, my marquee tool. So that's zooming, zoom in and out. Rotating around the object is rotating around select object. So here's my select object. Hold down the Alt key, hold down your middle mouse, and roll around. Everything is done with the middle mouse button, like every camera control in game. Rotating around an object is holding down the middle mouse and Alt key, and then moving mouse, of course. Zooming in and out is the mouse up and down. Panning like this, panning around this scene, is holding down the middle mouse button and just moving around. And those are your basic camera controls to easily navigate the scene. I've never really used any more. There are a few basic ones down here, or a few more separate ones. As you got your fine zoom tool, your zoom all tool. So what this does is it zooms. I don't know why I did that. So if we go out to our 4 views by hitting Alt W, that's what that does. Alt W maximizes the selected view. So here's my selected view, and to make sure that you select a view without actually accidentally selecting anything, because I've done that, just use the middle mouse button to select your views. Some people say use right mouse button, and it does do the same thing, but what if you're over an object like this and that pops up? So I just use my middle mouse button. So yeah, that's that. And zoom all would be, let's say we select this couch, and we hit zoom all. See, it zooms every single viewport, which I guess could be a good thing, but you'd have to be set up properly with it. If you zoom by pressing the Z key, which zooms in on the object, it zooms it in on all viewports. So yeah. Next is zoom extent selected, so that's what I just did by pressing the Z key. So it takes the select object and zooms the extents of it, but only in that one frame. So just hit the Z key and it does the exact same thing. That's the hotkey for it. Zoom extend all selected, yeah, that's the Z key one. This is the one that has the Z key. So let's say all of our viewports are different views, and we hit zoom all selected. It'll zoom in, but I just press the Z key and it works better and faster. This one is field of view. I've never actually used that. I think that you can just set the field of view. Yeah, you can set the field of view. I don't want to change it because that would look weird, but zoom in, zoom out, and yeah. That just changes the field of view. You go under this by holding it down. I don't even know what this does. Zoom region. Oh, I get it. So you select the region like this and it zooms in on it. That actually I think is more useful than the field of view. I think I'm going to leave that there. Walkthrough is kind of cool. You can walk through, it's very easy. It's slow though, and that's my problem with it. So what you do is you hold down your mouse to move the camera, and then you hit your WASD keys to move around, just like any shooter, but in a much slower way. So I mean, like, look how fast I'm going towards this ottoman. Oh no, I'm gonna crash. Ah! Anyways, I hate that. I do not use a walkthrough much unless I'm very fine-tuning my zooms. Most of it, as I said before, Alt middle mouse to rotate, middle mouse to zoom in and out, Z to zoom in on the selected object, and hold down middle mouse to pan. I rarely use the pan option anymore. I just hit Z to zoom in on the object and rotate around it. Like usually if I want to move across the scene nowadays, I just hit the object and I press Z and I zoom in on it, instead of panning around like that and then going like that. So let's say I want to move here, I want to move quickly up to the bedroom, I just click the bedroom thing, press Z, and now I'm close enough to it. And then I can pan around. So yeah, those are the camera controls, the GUI and camera controls. Up here, in your top right, is in here. It's your Viewcube, and on your Viewcube, you can see little stuff written on it. It says right. If I press this button, it says back. And really, what the Viewcube is it shows which side of the scene you're looking at. You're looking at the bottom, the left, the front, the right, the top. And if you hover over it, you can see that you can click on these corners and give you predefined like 3/4 views, front view, top view, and then you can just rotate that around. And yeah, that's an easy way to do camera motions. I rarely use it. Actually, I never use it. I'm gonna be honest, I never use the Viewcube. I just use the Alt and the mouse buttons like that. Over here in your viewport is a lot of, you won't have this total polygon count on there. I just have that as a debugging thing. If you hit this button, you can restore the viewport, and it restores it to the size it was. This can be accomplished by hitting Alt W, which I use a lot more. See, if I go down here and then you go click on this and you go maximize viewport, it does that again. Just maximize that. Active viewport, it sets my active viewport. So if I hit front, it brings me to my front. If I hit top, and these are determined by the 4 viewports that you have open in this view. If you want to go to the front view, just press F. If you want to go to the bottom view, press D. If you want to the left view, press L. And those are really the only ones that you can go to. And if you want to go perspective, press P. Those are the only ones you really need to. As much as the other views are really nice, you don't really need them. Ugh, excuse me, I'm tired. Viewcube, as I've shown before, you can show the Viewcube, you can hide it. I like showing it just because it gives me a nice scene. It shows me where I am in my scene. I don't use it as for navigation, but I do use it for reference. I can say it that way. Next we have our show for active view, show for all views. So if you show for active view, if I zoom out of this by pressing Alt W again, you see the Viewcube's only on this view. If I show for all views, you can see it's on every view again. And it rotates with every view. Next would be, it's Viewcube. And we'll go over that a bit more in depth later. X view, these are nice. This is, I think actually I should go that one in its own tutorial, yeah. So those are the basics for this, under the dot. Under this is the view of the viewport. So if you're looking from a camera, I don't have any cameras in the scene. Looking from light, I don't have any lights in the scene. Looking from perspective, orthographic, top, bottom, front, back, left, right view. Orthographic's kind of neat, but I never use it. What orthographic is perspective view, but without perspective, if that makes any sense. It's always the same size. So if I hit perspective, you can see that stuff gets smaller in the back. Just like when we look at anything in perspective view, there's a vanishing point. With orthographic, there's no vanishing point, and you can see it really change up here. And I don't know, I like perspective. I can never work with orthographic. It just doesn't feel right to me. It's nice that it's there, but some people can't work with it. Extended viewports, and then you can see the track view and Scene Explorer. See, and then you can bring up this entire viewport as your Scene Explorer. Now I want to get that out of there, and I can't remember how to do that. Display. Nope, I don't want that. Man, I've never actually done. No, I don't want that. Display. Select none. Sensitive. Customize. How do I get out of here? See, and that's the problem with those things. And as you can see, like, you can get a Scene Explorer inside one of your viewports. However, to just bring this back, right-click on it, on this top thing, and hit perspective again. So yeah, Alt W to zoom in. You can have some cool, like it would be nice sometimes, but I find if it's a smaller monitor with these 4 views, just have the default 4 views, top, front, left, perspective, and just zoom in and out of the perspective. I usually rarely work in anything besides perspective nowadays. Yeah, so that would be most of these tools. But you can have viewports like a track view or schematic view, a scene explorer, motion mix. Like you can have a lot of extended viewports. Show save frames is cool. What it does is it shows the save frames of your rendering setup. So if you bring up the rendering setup, you can see my render setup is 920 by 1080. This is what will be rendered inside these save frames. If you turn the save frames off, it'll show anything and you're like, oh, I'm going to render everything. But it'll actually only render probably about, show save frames about this much. And you could lose some pretty big problems, especially if you're going from a widescreen monitor to a full screen 4x3. 4x3, not render, but yeah, render. Widescreen viewport to a full screen render, and you can lose a lot of stuff. And this is just your undo zoom. So you can undo and redo your camera movements by using Shift Z and Shift Y. So let's say I was like, oh, I'm zoomed in on this, and then it was like, I'm going to move around camera way over here. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. And you just press Shift Z, and it's back to normal. And you're like, oh, well, Shift Y, and brings it back to and redoes the camera movements. Down here is your shading of your objects. This is what this is, and the look of your objects in your viewport. So you can have realistic look, which puts lighting and shadows onto it, just from a direct 45-degree sunlight that's up here. I usually like having the realistic view on, but I mean, I had lots and lots of ceilings and walls and no final gathering, so I'm like, I can't work with this when it's on like that. So I just put it back to shaded. Shaded this, it just has color information on it but no lighting. Consistent colors makes everything very, very similar in terms of color. So the shadows try to even everything out. Kind of good, but I don't like it. I like shaded better. Edge faces just turns off. You can hit F4 for edge faces. So as you can see, you have these. Press F4, you can see all of my edges on them. You press F3, you can see a wireframe. And this bounding box around it, some people hate it. Press J to turn it off, press J to turn it on. J is in Julius or Juno. I can't remember the actual, I think it's Julius. Yeah, the native alphabet is Julius. So yeah, you can do it that way. I usually like having edge faces on because I like seeing them. I like seeing my edges, and I like having the bounding box on because it's easy to see the entire area that something takes up. So those are those things. That's the most of the viewport. Now let's go over to this create panel. And in this create panel, you have your create tool, your modify tool, your hierarchy tool, your motion panel, your display panel, and your tools panel, utilities. I call it tools because it's there. Create is a creation. It's very simple. You create lines, you create splines, you create lights, you create dummies, forces, and under each one of them you have lots of options. Okay, well, more so in the first one. But as you can understand, there's a lot of, this is creating everything. Modifying then is modifying that object you created. So you can put on any sort of modifier. You can have your edit poly in here. You can have all your modifying stacks in here. And this is what the stuff you'll use once you created your object. Hierarchy is everything about the pivot and about the hierarchy of the motion of that thing. So usually a lot of things I use it for is just affecting the pivot so I can rotate it properly. Then there's these working pivots and aligning it. These are very much more so important for animation. They did it very well. This is modeling. These two first tabs are modeling, mostly. These two tabs, well, 3 tabs, but these 2 tabs mostly are for animation. And these 2 tabs are just your tools and utilities. This is the hiding stuff, so I can hide all my geometry, I can hide all my shapes, I can hide all my lights, all my cameras, all my helpers. See, and there's a helper, it's already hidden. I didn't even know I had a helper there, but it's hidden. You can hide all your bone objects, and you see up there all my bone objects are hidden. I think, yeah, they're helpers too. So you can hide those things if you want to. This is just for display of everything. You can freeze stuff by unselected by name, by hit. This one's cool, you freeze it and you click it and it freezes it. And you go, woo, woo. It's like you're hitting stuff. Like, oh, bam, bam, I'm hitting you, you're frozen. And you can start swearing at it. And then you just unfreeze all. Usually for these things, I just like right-clicking and bringing it up here. As you can see, there's your transform window here. So you move rotate. There's your display up here, as it says it right here. There's your tools 1 right here, and your tools 2 right here. And it says it really nicely. And this one only has display and transform, but it's all based upon what type of object you've selected. So let's say I select this helper, there's different tools than if I select this bottom plane. and there's different tools if I select this line, stuff like that. These tools are mostly, I rarely use them, but they're good for just basic management. So you have your asset browser. So you can browse through all your assets that you have in the object. So you can bring up thumbnails, you can bring up pictures and stuff like that. Camera match, that's more for motion capture, and motion capture here. Reset X-Form is nice. This is for more exporting to videos, and if you're in Maya, this is freeze transformation. So let's say I make a box, and I go box, and we zoom in on it, and then I just start scaling it and moving it. And I'm just like, okay, when this exports, this will export at 100 scale, and it won't export the actual frozen scale, this scaled here. So what you do to make sure that it does this is you go here, you go reset X-Form, reset selected, and now you can see 100 scale. So yeah, that's this one. This is display, this is motion, and controlling objects for animation. We'll get that in more depth later. This is modify, and this is create. So as I said, these two first ones are mostly modeling. These two are mostly animation. These two are mostly asset and scene management, I guess. So we've gone through most of this. This is our main toolbar. This is our main menu bar. We'll go through each of these more depth later. These are our main tools that we'll use, but you can access them probably mostly both ways. I mean, you got your W, E, Q right here. So Q is just select, W is move, E is rotate, R is scale. You have the way to do, you can right click on this, but usually I just use the hotkey of Q, W, E, R. Down here is your animation timeline. This is for animation. I rarely use it. You have keyframes. You can set between 0 and 100. Down here you have time configuration. You can change the number of keyframes by saying like end time 500. You can change the frames per second. You can do NTSC. You can do film, which is 24 usually. Yeah, it's 24. It has to be. Film is 24. PAL I think is 28 or something. NTSC is 29.97. Custom, you can change your own. You can be like, I want 1 frame per second. It's really slow. Or 4,800 frames per second. Holy Jesus, that's a lot. That's high-speed cameras, I guess. So yeah, I just do NTSC, which is the best. It's 30 frames for America. If you're from Europe, use PAL. If you're doing film, I guess, yeah, use film. Time display, you got seconds. You got frames, you got seconds, minutes, something, I don't know. And then you got frames and ticks. And then you got minutes, seconds, ticks. And I just use frames because it's the easiest thing. 30 frames per second, use frames, boom, bang, you're done. Custom, and end time at 100. So that's how you change around your animation. Rescale time is really nice. What you do is you have your time, and now you're like, okay, I want to rescale this to, I want to still have the exact same animation, but I want it to take up 200 frames instead of 100 frames. So you hit rescale time, you press OK, and the animation that was then in 100 frames is now 2 times slower because it's taking up 200 frames, and we'll rescale the time back to 100. And press OK. Alright, so that's those things. If you click this button down here, it's a mini curve editor, mostly for animation. We'll get into that later. It's very useful though. And down here is probably my most favorite feature of Max. This is your world space view. This shows you the location of whatever object it is in accordance to this 0 point, the origin right down here. So you can easily tell how far something is away. So this is 260 inches negative of the origin, so to the right of. Think of your Cartesian coordinate plane. You got your positive, positive, negative, negative. It's weird, but I mean that's everything's based off the Cartesian coordinate plane in the locations of it. Let me try to think of something else. I think that's mostly all of the GUI. Oh, up here you have your graphic modeling tools. This is more for painting stuff, objects and stuff, in a more Mudbox or ZBrush kind of way. But yeah, this I'll go over a bit more when we get into modeling. That is the basics of the GUI, so let's just quickly review that. You got your menu bar with all your menus. You got your toolbar with all your tools. You can customize your toolbar by right-clicking, and see now there's access constraints there. Or you can do that by going Customize, Show UI, Show Floating Toolbars. And look at all these floating toolbars that you could have just right-clicked by. So you go here and you just go Mass Effect toolbar. There it is. Bam, shown. Close out all these, and you can dock them by dragging them onto it. You go like that, and you can pull them off by dragging them off. You can literally put them anywhere on any side of the screen. So now they're on my right side of the screen, stuff like that. Close that out. Close that out. Then we have our main viewport, and you can change around the settings of the main viewport. Oh, geez, I just did something. Okay, I just deselected it. Main viewport by selecting these, and you can hit your where you're looking at your viewport in this one, and you can change the look of your object in this one. Then we go over here by our restore panel. We got our create and modify, which is mostly for modeling, our hierarchy and motion, which is mostly for animation, and display and utilities, which are mostly tools and management. Down here we have camera controls, but as you remember, it's Alt, middle mouse to pan, or to rotate, middle mouse to pan, and just the mouse scroll to zoom in and out. Press on something, and instead will zoom to the selected object, and then you can move around from there. But you do have these tools down here. Then we have our playback tools, so play animation, next frame, end frame, start frame, and then key mode. And you can change your time by hitting this time configuration. You can also go to exact frame by hitting right here, this dialog box entry. Then we have these are animation tools, the auto key, set key. We have our world space view, which shows us how far something is in comparison to the origin of the object. We have our mini track view, and we have our timeline scrubbing. And this is just small stuff that tells us. So it's one group selected and what your tool does, which click and drag selecting the object. This is the Mass Effect script that I do not write scripts for, so I'm not too worried about it. I hope you, and there we are. I hope you enjoyed something and learned something, enjoyed it and learned something. Man, I'm out of practice with these things. And that would be the basic GUI of 3ds Max. Next tutorial, we're probably going to go delve deeper into the edit and the create panel, stuff like that. So, hope you enjoyed, and see you next time.